Hello and welcome to the Global Workplace Wellness Forum. My name is Joyce Edison. I'm very excited that you're joining us here today because we have one of my favorite guests here, Alex. Alex Ihama, can you please introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us a little bit about you, and we'll get started with our conversation.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. Before I introduce myself, let me say thank you. Thank you to Joyce. You are such an amazing person. Like, I don't know who can come to your show and not smile. Like, when I was just clicking, it says, you're waiting for the host, you're waiting. I was already smiling because I know you were smiling on the other end. So anyway, my name is Alex. I'm here in Toronto, Canada. I run the International School of Greatness, an institution of inspiration that we formed almost 20 years ago. We have over 200,000 students in 45 nations. We have over 300 courses. 80% is online and 20% people taking class. Over almost 66 certified coaches directly by me and them, but we have about 100 coaches that facilitate different personal development program, leadership effectiveness, and corporate culture. We also have another institution called the Corporate University. The Corporate University was formed just to cater to major organizations that require our program, mostly from executive coaching perspective and a corporate transformation and strategy development. So I've been in that space for over 20 years. Exactly 1998, I started. So 22 years I've been doing this. Prior to that, among that, I worked in different organizations like Bank of Montreal, CIBC, and Royal Bank, and different organizations that I used to work for, now work with and work through them. So I always believe that most people confuse their profession for their purpose. I believe the profession is meant to prepare you for your purpose. So,
Absolutely.
years of corporate experience prepared me to be who Alex Ihama is today. I'm so honored to be part of your program, Joyce.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful that you have made the time to be part of our conversation. So today, when we talk on the Global Workplace Wellness Summit and the forum, which is where I bring on practitioners and people who are working in the corporate arena, one of the key things we're noticing right now, it's the pandemic. We are in the
Mm-hmm.
heart of the global pandemic and workplaces have changed. What are some things you've noticed you've had to shift or change as a result?
So for us, particularly as an organization, we didn't have to shift much at all. Because we've been in the online space. I often tell people, I say, I've been doing webinars before Facebook.
Yes,
So
yes.
Facebook didn't get me online. So we were doing with the first versions of webinar, even during Skype. We were using Skype to do programs then. So for us, we're excited. The part that shifted for us, which is to our favor, is we now use or rent out our virtual platform. So we now created a new arm of business called the Virtual Event Management Center with 1,000 capacity, where we brought Zoom, MailChimp, different software, up to 5, 6 softwares together to give an accelerating experience for people to go through programs. So recently we hosted an organization in the US, 700 member association, who were about to cancel their annual convention. So they rented it. We have facilitated over 7 funerals through this platform. Funerals, and birthday parties. So we now call it the social enterprise of the business. So we will always focus on business programs and academic programs. Now we do social enterprise programs and social programs, and that has become, believe it, Joyce, significant revenue for our organization. The first one was, oh, please, we lost somebody. Actually, it was my cousin who passed away. She passed away, and they said they could only take 10 people in the funeral, right, because of COVID. So I couldn't go. The husband and the kids, and literally had immediate family made up that number. And then I told my brother-in-law, I said, why don't you get somebody to use their phone to stream it, and I'll pick it up on Zoom, and I can project it to friends and family. So people who would not have been in her funeral, right? People from all over Africa, Europe, and America who would not have been here, they were able to join. So we had about 500 people join her funeral through that. And from that, somebody now told us, "Oh, it's my wife 1 year memorial. She passed away last year. Can we use that same way you did that?" We say sure. And then another one asked, we say sure. And I say, hold on a second. This is costing time. It's costing money. So we need to build a business a plan around it, which we did immediately, and it just exploded. Literally exploded.
Good
So
for you.
people are renting virtual event center, event management center from us, and and now we've trained people who also host it for us, because we created different packages. If you want me there, it's a lot of money because my presence also counts. But if you want my staff or some of my people there, it's cheaper, right? So we now created different packages, and most of the time they say, well, we want that man. Well, I say, well, that's this man. So that's what shifted for us, Joyce, and we in as much as like the funeral, of course, our heart goes out to the families and things, but it's the service you pay to go to funeral homes, right? You pay all this. So this is something that's we're excited about. Other organizations now that did know we're struggling with online, we're also, of course, supporting them to leverage online to develop their people.
Absolutely. Because, I said the other day, I was interviewed by a colleague and I said, remote work has always been there.
Yeah.
It's the volume at which it is now that's new.
Yes.
And the difference is the level of employees that are doing remote work has also changed.
That's right.
Because prior, it was mostly the self leaders, it was mostly the executives, it was the people who drove things, were the ones who were doing remote work. Now
Hmm.
you have entry level, you have all levels of people who are not necessarily self drivers
Right.
doing remote work. And that calls for a different level of leadership, a different
Yeah.
level of management, understanding, and perception to within the organization in order to fuel the level of efficiency, production, and productivity that's
Hmm.
required. And so we're seeing more and more different challenges. And someone said to me last night, employees are really struggling with what they're being asked to do at work, and workplace wellness is so important and imminent at this time. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think you nailed it right on the head. You and I said the same word at the same time, leadership, right? So leadership. I mean, let me quote John C. Maxwell. He says, everything rises and falls on leadership. As a leader, and I wrote this in my book, Mystic of Leadership. As a leader doesn't blame, doesn't complain, doesn't make excuses. You can't. So if your people are not performing at the level they should be performing despite the pandemic, then your leadership has been ineffective, at least until that point. Right. So when leaders tell me and say, "Oh, I'm just concerned that my people may not be working from home," I'm like, then that are you trying to say you've not been leading? Because if you've been leading, whether they are working from home now or not, productivity should not be impacted, because you've been able to inspire them and develop them to be self-starters, self-motivated, which I often say I'm not a motivational speaker. We can motivate people. They have to be self-motivated. We can inspire them to be self-motivated, but that's all we can do. So organizations right now, what they need to start looking at beyond, oh, we need Zoom or we need this technology, is literally the effectiveness of those in positions of authority. Are you able to influence people who may be miles away from you to still do what you want to get done for your clients, while you don't even see them at all? You don't know if they're even sitting in front of the computer. You don't even know if the computer is in one place. You have no idea where they are. So we need to focus a lot, organization need to focus a lot on the leadership development aspect, and every other thing, like as I say, will just begin to really fall in place.
Absolutely. I'm teaching a course right now, the collaborative management blueprint course, and I have managers and leaders from across the globe, across North America, actually, in this particular course. And one of the things they're talking about is looking at the collaborative principles that we teach and implementing them into their workplace. When you look at something like interdependence, which is one of the ones my students were talking about today, is recognizing the vulnerability that they
Mm-hmm.
as leaders have, because you are vulnerable to the productivity of your employees,
Yes.
and there is an energy to that. There is that relationship that's so important to have as a foundational piece in that management relationship. And when that's missing because of ego, because of lack of training, because of lack
Mm-hmm.
of awareness, or lack of self motivation, whatever that may be, it becomes a huge issue. And we see the interpersonal dynamics going downhill. And then we have the stress leave, and we have people calling in sick or
Mm-hmm.
not wanting to be there. And it goes on and on. And being a conflict analyst for the last 25 years, we see a lot of that. And as in the work that you're doing, how would you encourage those you're working with to be aware of the impact and how the long-term effect of those kinds of issues?
Yeah, so when this pandemic started, there was this confusion, and I think a month or two into it, I had to do a podcast, and I really call it the critical skills for the leadership through crisis. And people were expecting me to talk about what I usually talk about, oh, the strategy and this. I said, no, no, no. Number one is compassion. Number
Mhm.
one, they're like, what? Yes, number one is compassion.
Absolutely.
Like I said, when we open up the virtual event management center, which I can only see it in my head, they don't see it because it's almost like this building in my head. And I tell them, I said, you have no idea the pain some of your people are going through. So if your focus is on the data, if your focus is on the reports, if your focus is on the project before the people, then you would have completely disengaged the relationship. I mean, I just told you, 10 funerals in 5 months. I have been in 10. Either I'm facilitating it or I'm participating in a 10 with 210,000 people dead in the US alone. I live outside Toronto, which is Bradford, and then there's Newmarket. Like if you add the three cities close to me, we are not even up to 200,000. So which means this whole series are wiped out. Now, one person have at least 3, 4 people, family members, and then friends, and then employees. So which means if you take 200,000 people, just using the number from the US alone, the impact is 1 million, right? Direct impact, not even the indirect impact. So, and then you're calling and worrying if I'm online. Your goal is, you don't know if like I just said, my cousin passed away. Like, so there are people who has been directly impacted. So I can stay on this forever. If there was ever a time to put being human in leadership, it is now. Let's park the strategy, right? Let's park it for now. Let's make sure we're all sane. People are going crazy. I have my kids from home, so like we're doing homeschool, and they're logging in online, and this one kid will have to go this way, and like it's all getting crazy. To me, if there was ever a time for true leadership to demonstrate itself, it is now. And once you focus on that, when people, I think somebody said it once, I don't recall who did, but said it perfectly. Say, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that, because that alone captures it, right? This
Mhm.
is not a time to be running helter skelter about the work that needs done. This is the time to ensure that our people are sane. They
Mhm.
are sane, they are alive, they are breathing.
Mhm.
Workplace wellness. Talk about workplace
Absolutely.
wellness. it just occurred to me. That's
Absolutely.
all you're saying. All you're
Yeah.
saying is workplace wellness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not in pain physically, emotionally. Because one of the things and one of the drive behind, and you're going to be a speaker at the Global Workplace Wellness Summit, and we're going to come to diversity and inclusion. That's our next piece. But one of the things that we recognize is that the emotional pain that people are feeling at work, that employees are going through. And in my work, every week I'm working with employees, I'm teaching employees, I'm talking to employees. And when I teach, I'm not just over here teaching. My employees, they get into my heart and I connect with them at a very intimate level. So they feel safe to tell me things and ask me questions. So I get to really get a good read on what's happening for them. And there's a lot of emotional pain, emotional torture. A few years ago, even before the pandemic, I created the 30-day emotional cleanse because I was seeing so much emotional turmoil. And we know that the World Health Organization said that mental health will be the highest cause of workplace disability by 2020. And that was before they even think about the pandemic. And we are in a pandemic in addition to that. So we know that the mental health crisis, the emotional turmoil that people are going through is very overwhelming. The attempted, for every suicide we hear, there's been almost 100 attempted. So we know that people are hurting themselves, and that comes from an inner hurt. So as a leader in an organization, I love that you talk about compassion, because we do need to show people we care. We do need to show people compassion, but sometimes it doesn't get to the boardroom. And I heard you said something about wellness. It is a strategy. One of the most profound strategy is connecting with your employees and letting them know you care. That once you have that foundation, that is the most basic strategy you can have. After that, everything else compiles on that.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. So you're going to be talking to us at the summit on diversity and inclusion. And as brown people, this is a topic that's very important to us. All of us have at some point in our workplace or professional lives encountered systemic racism or some sort of dismissal, or it's unbelievable how narrow-minded and blinded people can be about what systemic racism is and what their behavior constitutes, how their behavior constitutes and drives that for those of us with brown skin. And so you're going to be talking to us a little bit about the whole concept of Black Lives Matter. And I'm curious if you want to give our audience a tidbit of what they can expect at the summit.
Absolutely. I believe that first and foremost, the dictionary did not do justice to the term systemic racism. So we came up with our own definition. Our definition is this: systemic racism is a series of undocumented policies, processes, and procedures that are aimed to hold down a specific ethnic group from personal, professional, and socio-economic development. So, let that digest a bit, right? So, with that in mind, I think I must be remiss on my panel to mention yesterday's debate with the vice president debate. Where Mike Spence actually said, there is this perception that there is systemic racism in America. There is this perception. Unfortunately, some organizations and some people in positions of authority may have that perception, that opinion as well, because even the head of, I think it was West Fargo, who also said that we don't have blacks at the highest level of our leadership because we can't find those who are qualified enough. And now has lost, I think, 11 black female top leaders in that organization have left that organization. So this is a big deal. It is directly tied to your bottom line, I tell people. It's directly tied. If ignorance is no longer an excuse. There are three types of racism. Again, in that we teach this. We actually have a diversity institute for this under our corporate university. And so we have come up with three types. Type number one is overt racism, which we are seeing. The man with the knee on George Floyd, overt. That is, I'm racist. I don't care what you think. That's who I am. And then there's covert racism, which you often in the words of Donovan Bailey, he says in Canada is racism with a smile. That's really covert racism. That means I'm racist, but I'm not bold enough to let you know. I'll just keep quiet. Well, for those keeping quiet, Martin Luther King have a quotation. It says, until a man can rise above his individualistic concern to a broader concern of humanity is not fit to live. In the end, they said, we will remember not the words of the insults of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Right? So, and then the third one, which we often these days you hear people say unconscious bias. Well, unconscious bias is just is another form of racism, and we've kind of softened it with the terminology. But what that basically means, you're racist and you don't even know you are.
It is, and I think that comes from socialization. And sometimes, when I teach cultural diversity, I remind people that culture is pervasive.
Yes.
You don't even have to wake up in the morning and say what my culture is. It's inbred, because
Yes.
everything we learn, everything we do is learned.
Yes.
And it's a learned behavior. So if you were raised in a society that teaches you that because of the color of my skin, I am superior to a different group of people, it is just natural. It becomes part of your frame of reference. So your actions, your thoughts, your interactions, your concept, your exchanges, and the way you speak about that group is going to be from by a less than perspective, not an equal to perspective. And that's where the unconscious bias comes in, because many of those individuals have read something or seen something or had disconfirming information from what they've been socialized to have. And now they're at the place where they're in that place of, well, I know that's not real, but my subconscious is programmed to to that superior level. And so that unconscious bias becomes what we see, what you experience from them. Even if they tell you something else, their action is very different. So the whole area of Black Lives Matter has become very troubling for a lot of people. And as we talk about it in the summit, as we open the dialogue, and the goal here is to give the 2020 summit is to give a platform to discuss some of those key issues that are impacting people's well-being at work. I know of many employees who have suffered systemic racism at home, at work, who have now taken it home, who have impacted their lives and their well-being and that of their family. In addition to that, some have gone through mental health disease. Some have had to develop other forms of health problems because of the consistent pervasiveness of the systemic racism, the unconscious bias, and that sense of feeling discomfort at work, which can be very unhealthy, because we spend so much time with our colleagues and in our workplace, and to be there feeling less than, feeling expecting or wondering when it's going to come, it's been very stressful for a lot of people of color.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one thing I want to tell people is don't confuse Black Lives Matter as a movement with the concept. Of course, I support some of what the movement is advocating for, but the concept is what most people need to really know about. Because once you understand the concept of why Black Lives Matter, because, sometimes you post on LinkedIn or Facebook, Black Lives Matter, and then some go where White Lives Matter too. I'm like, that is so indicative of why our work is important, because that's indicative of the ignorance that is hindering the progress that should have happened. For over 400 years, these black people have been marginalized. Over almost 20 million went through slavery, valued at $47 billion worth of labor, that was put into the system with no payment. And even when slavery ended, they came up with a way to, charge, blacks for any offense at all, so they can have a criminal record. And by so doing, they can be used for labor even while in jail. A lot of people don't know this. Blacks, when slavery ended, blacks they were put in jail, and then used for free labor, still back to the same plantation they were rescued from. So there's a lot of history that has been buried for far too long that must come up. But my focus, though, at your conference is going to be, I mean, I may touch on that softly, but it's going to be how do we, and we meaning now, how do organizations, executives, leaders, supervisors, coaches, people who have made a personal decision to embrace position of authority? Because I often tell people, don't confuse leadership with a position of authority. A position of authority, does not automatically make you a leader. But if you have made the decision and say, I want to step up, I want to step out, I want to speak up, I want to become a change agent, then this message is going to be for you, because you need to be empowered with how to manage the sensitivity and the discomfort level, because we have to be conscious of that as well. And that is the reason why most organizations and most people are uptight when you bring up diversity. They are not uptight when you bring up gender equity. They are not uptight when you bring up any other topic. But they're uptight when you bring up this topic. But how do you break through that level of discomfort so strong that is almost palpable? How do you break through that? And how do you now, after you've done that, how do you influence both those in positions of authority and those who are not in positions of authority in your organization to build a more cohesive, inclusive, and equitable work environment? A lot of people I speak to people, and we have done this work with Bank of Montreal, with CIBC, with Monetary Solution, with even arms of the government, region of Peel, City of Toronto, City of Markham. We've done work with United Nations on this. And here's another aspect, Joyce, if you allow me, that most people don't know about. Another aspect of this particular topic is the United Nations have declared the ongoing decade as that's from till 2025, so 2025 as the International Decade of People of African Descent. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't. United Nations themselves, I wish I could pull it up and read the declaration. They said, to paraphrase it, they said that for far too long, people of African descent have been not just marginalized, they've basically been dead the short end of the stick in justice, housing, finances, and everything. And they have given their member states, about 200 countries, the task to spend 10 years to bring recognition, justice, and development in regards to people of African descent. Justin, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, he just acknowledged that 2 years ago. City of Toronto just recently did. Halifax has maybe about 6 municipalities have, but you don't hear this on the news. Is nowhere. So United Nations, that we pay billions of dollars to as a nation, have mandated you to put things in place to ensure the justice development of people of African descent, but nothing's been done about that. I believe that despite all this, what I call a racial revolution, despite the ongoing racial revolution, this is the time. There is no other time than now. I often say in every time there's a moment. So this is the moment we have an opening for us to shift just a bit, and that shift. What excites me the most is not only Black people who are now advocating Black Lives Matter. We have Indian, Chinese, white. We have everybody, and I want to use the opportunity to thank whoever may be watching this, listening to this, and say, if you're one of those, because I've spoken to some I have lots of associates and friends and stuff who are not Black, and I've spoken to most of them, and their desire to help touches me. And I know that same desire is in the heart of people. So I want to invite you. If you're out there today, I want to invite you. You don't have to be a CEO. You don't have to be a vice president. You can just be a human being. That's enough. Sign up for this conference and come and learn about just tidbits of information that for far too long has been buried. How come we limit Black history to 1 month? What happens? Like how much can you cover in 1 month a year? Right? I guarantee you. Listen to this. I guarantee you. And people often tell me, Alex, yes, I guarantee you. If you come to this and there was no shift in your understanding of what is going on, send us a message. And no, I'm not putting this on Joyce, me directly. Send us alex at alexihama.com, and we'll give you access to our program, online program, 12 module program that, you'll see the comments of other people who've gone through there of how this has really helped them. I'm excited, not for this convention, this conference that we're planning for, but I'm even more so excited that you will be joining this conversation, because as one coach told me, he plays a very prominent coach here in Toronto, in one of the sports. He said, Alex, when I went to your program you did for one, I won't mention the name of that particular organization, but when I went for the program you did for that, something that touched me the most was when you said that silence is complicit. Silence is complicit. It says, for me as a coach, we play games, and then in the locker room, and especially when the black players are gone, my colleagues use words, racial slurs for the players. Meanwhile, we cheer them on when they are doing what they're doing, but in the back room, we insult them. So he says, Alex, help me. How do I handle this? How do I be the one to speak out against them? How can I even educate them? That is something I'll also be talking about. You want to learn that. If you consider yourself agent of change, you need to be empowered, inspired. You need to be equipped with how to be agent of change, not just in your closet, not just in places you are comfortable, but in the places that you are not comfortable. Everybody should learn that. Certainly HR leaders, executives, CEOs, you all need to learn that, and I'll be so glad. I'm excited. I'm excited for if I wasn't speaking, I will register. That's how excited I am.
Alex, it's such a pleasure talking with you and learning from you. I'm sure audience is going to be tickled by this interview and will be looking forward to it, to coming to your session. So thank you so much. If someone wants to reach you, how can they connect with you?
Yes, you can. I'm very active on social media. Coach Alex Ihama. That's facebook.com/Coach Alex Ihama. On LinkedIn, the same thing. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, or just send me a direct email, alex@alexihama.com. My website is alexihama.com. I'm the only Alex Ihama. Recently we checked in the whole world, so.
What a thing! You're unique.
Yes, Alex Ihama. IHAMA. I'm excited.
Excellent.
Joyce, you are doing a fantastic work. I'm telling you, you're doing such a fantastic work. You are, you are the leader many have been waiting for, and I'm touched by the flames that comes out of you, and the sparkles of wisdom and joy and peace and harmony. The mission you have undertaken is not a common one. We all talk leadership and strategy, but you have zoomed in and say workplace wellness. If the people are not well, what the heck can you expect from them? Right? So you are actually addressing the roots of the problem. When I came across your profile, I was just excited for what you do. Thank you for making me a part of your program. Thank you for what you've been doing all around the world, and thank you for what you are yet to do. Because I know the work is still plenty. It says the harvest is plenty, the workers are few. So thank you. I stand with you, my friend.
Thank you, Alex. Pleasure.
All right.